Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of the Fairmont Copley Plaza Hotel in Boston, casting a soft glow on Maya Thompson's pristine white wedding dress. She stood before the mirror, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the veil, her deep brown eyes reflecting joy and unease. Today was the most important day of her life, the day she would become the wife of James Carter, the man she loved more than anything. But within Maya, a storm of emotions was brewing. She wasn't just nervous about entering a new chapter of her life. She was haunted by a more profound fear. Would James's family, a prestigious white lineage in Boston, truly accept her, a black woman, despite all she had achieved as a successful attorney? "Maya, you look stunning," said Lena Harris, her best friend from their Harvard days, stepping forward and placing a hand on her shoulder. With her radiant smile and uplifting energy, Lena had always been Maya's anchor in turbulent times. "This is your day. Don't let any worry overshadow it." Maya gave a faint smile, but her eyes still revealed hesitation. "Lena, what if they never see me as good enough?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "James's family. They're always polite, but sometimes I sense the glances, the silences. What if they can't accept me simply because I'm black?" Lena squeezed Maya's shoulders, locking eyes with her through the mirror. "Listen to me, Maya Thompson. You are a brilliant attorney, a strong and compassionate woman. You've overcome so much to stand here today. If James's family can't see that it's their problem, not yours." Lena's words were like a cool breeze, soothing some of the turmoil within Maya. Yet deep down, she still felt a void. She thought of her grandmother Ruth, who had lived through the hardship of the civil rights movement in the South. Just weeks earlier, Grandma Ruth had taken Maya's hand, her voice heavy with concern. "Are you sure about this marriage, sweetheart? Love is beautiful, but sometimes racial differences bring challenges you can't yet foresee." That warning still echoed in Maya's mind, making her question whether she was ready. Just a few blocks away, in a different hotel, James Carter stood in front of a mirror, his usually confident blue eyes now tinged with rare vulnerability. He adjusted his black tuxedo, but his mind wandered back to the tense conversation he'd had with his mother Eleanor the night before. She had said something strange, her voice unsteady. "James, are you certain about this marriage? I mean, after everything our family's been through?" James had cut her off, frustrated by the doubt he sensed in her words. But now, with only hours to go until the ceremony, he couldn't help but wonder if there was something she wasn't telling him. Michael Evans, James's best friend, clapped him on the shoulder. "You look sharp, groom. Maya's going to swoon when she sees you in that tux." Michael grinned, clearly trying to ease the tension. James offered a faint smile, but his hand unconsciously brushed against his prosthetic left leg, the result of a car accident at age 18 that had forever altered his life. "Sometimes I wonder if Maya truly knows what she's signing up for," he said quietly. "She deserves someone more perfect than me." Michael paused, adjusting James's tie, then looked him straight. "Someone like you? Do you mean a respected civil rights attorney who's overcome adversity to become an inspiration? Maya knows exactly who she chose, James. Don't doubt yourself." Michael's words brought a measure of comfort, but couldn't dispel the gnawing uncertainty within James. He remembered the first time he saw Maya 3 years ago at a civil rights conference in Washington, D.C. She had stood at the podium confident and passionate, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. Their connection was instant, transcending race or disability. But now, standing at the threshold of marriage, James couldn't help but wonder if their love was strong enough to withstand the weight of family and societal expectations. Suddenly his phone buzzed. A message from Maya lit up the screen. "I can't wait to see you at the altar. I love you." Those simple words were like a beam of light, momentarily dispelling his doubt. James took a deep breath, stood tall, and turned to Michael. "Let's go. I've got a bride waiting." Meanwhile, a gentle knock sounded on the door at Maya's hotel. It was her father, Dr. David Thompson, a renowned physician in Roxbury. He stepped inside, his eyes filled with pride but laced with concern. "Sweetheart, are you ready?" he asked warmly. Maya turned, smiling. "Almost, Dad. I need a little more time to settle myself." David embraced his daughter gently and whispered, "You are my pride. But remember, marriage isn't just about love. It's about understanding and facing challenges. You've chosen James, and I trust your choice. But if anyone hurts you, even his family, I won't forgive them." His words stirred emotion in Maya, but also deepened her apprehension. She knew her father, who had endured years of racial discrimination, remained cautious about relationships that crossed cultural lines. But Maya believed in James and their love. She took her father's hand and said, "I know, Dad. I'll be strong." As both wedding parties prepared to leave their hotels for Trinity Church at Copley Square, the air was thick with anticipation. Guests began to arrive. Harvard friends of Maya's, legal colleagues of James's, and extended family from both sides. Some smiled and chatted easily, while others seemed quietly tense, as if bracing for something unspoken. No one knew that this day, meant to be pure joy, would become a profound test of love, loyalty, and understanding for Maya and James. As the church bells rang out, signaling the start of the ceremony, Maya and James, each in a separate place, felt their hearts pounding. They were about to embark on a journey that wasn't just the union of two souls, but the collision of two worlds' histories and legacies. And somewhere amid the exchanged glances of the guests, a secret waited to be revealed, one that threatened to upend everything they had built. Trinity Church at Copley Square glowed in the gentle afternoon light, the organ's hymn echoing through the nave as Maya Thompson descended the aisle, arm in arm with her father, Dr. David Thompson. Her fitted white gown glittered under the candlelight, but Maya's heart pounded with both joy and apprehension. At the front, James Carter stood waiting, his blue eyes lighting up at the sight of her. At that moment, every doubt seemed to melt away. James remembered the first time he'd met Maya at a civil rights conference in Washington, D.C., how her gaze had made him forget about his prosthetic leg and all his limitations. Their fingers intertwined a silent pledge that their love could transcend every barrier. Pastor Rachel Evans, a longtime friend of the Thompson family, began the ceremony with a warm voice. "We gather today to witness the union of Maya and James, a testament to love's power to overcome all differences." As she spoke, Maya caught sight of Eleanor Carter, James's mother, seated in the front row, exchanging worried glances with her husband Robert. Maya forced herself to focus on the vows about to be spoken. James went first, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "Maya, from the moment I met you, you brought light into my life. You see me not for my disability or my past, but for who I truly am. I promise to stand by you, to face every challenge, and to build a future founded on respect and unconditional love." Tears shimmered in Maya's eyes. She answered, her voice trembling. "James, you've taught me the true meaning of resilience. Your love makes me a better version of myself. I vow to be your companion, to stand with you through every difference, and to build a home where love triumphs above all." Rings were exchanged, a kiss sealed their vows, and the applause of guests marked their official union. Yet beneath the celebration, Maya still felt an invisible tension emanating from James's family. She tried to dismiss it as imagination, but the unease lingered. The reception occurred in the Fairmont Copley Plaza Grand Ballroom, where crystal chandeliers, lit up smiling faces and dancing couples. Maya and James circulated among the tables, thanking guests and sharing their happiness. While speaking with Dr. Harold Bennett, a Black American historian, and her father's old friend Maya, unintentionally set off a bombshell. "Maya, you're the most radiant bride I've ever seen, Doctor," Bennett said with a warm smile. "It's remarkable to see Henry Carter's granddaughter marrying a black woman. Times have certainly changed, haven't they?" Maya froze, as if the air had been sucked out of the room. "Henry Carter," she repeated, her voice cracking. "Who is he exactly?" Dr. Bennett's smile faltered. "Oh, Henry Carter is James's grandfather. He was quite famous, or rather infamous in the 1960s for some rather unsavory reasons. He hesitated, searching for a way to correct himself, but it was too late." Maya felt the floor drop from beneath her. She clutched her glass of wine, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Infamous how, sir?" Before Dr. Bennett could answer, James arrived, beaming blissfully unaware of the conversation that had just transpired. "Hey, love, time for cake," he said, pulling Maya's hand. She forced a smile, but 1,000 questions swirled in her mind. Why had James never mentioned his grandfather? What did unsavory really mean? And most importantly, why had he kept such a crucial secret from her? As they approached the cake table and the camera flashes popped, Maya felt like an actress following a script she didn't understand. She cut the cake, forcing herself to smile, but her thoughts were elsewhere. James, noticing the change in her eyes, gently asked, "Are you okay?" Maya nodded, but her heart felt heavy. The music resumed, yet Maya could not focus. When the first dance concluded, she led James to a secluded corner of the ballroom, the dim lights shielding the anguish on her face. "James," she began, her voice shaking with anger and hurt, "who is Henry Carter, and why have you never told me about your grandfather?" James went pale, his eyes widening in shock. Where did you hear that?" he stammered, clutching her hand. "Dr. Bennett said he's your grandfather and was infamous for bad reasons back in the 60s. James." "What is this?" Maya's voice rose, tears welling. "You know who I am. You know what my family suffered under segregation, and you hid this from me." James took a step back as if struck. He ran his hand through his hair, panic in his eyes. "Maya, I don't know how to explain." "Yes. Henry Carter was my grandfather. He was an anti-integration activist in the South. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd see me differently. I'm not him, Maya." I swear, James's confession landed like a punch in Maya's chest. She shook her head, tears streaming. "Not him, James. You're his grandson, and chose to keep this from me. How can I trust you when you keep such a huge secret?" Her voice cracked, drawing glances from nearby guests. "Please, Maya," James pleaded, stepping forward, but she raised a hand to stop him. "I love you. I just wanted to protect you from that past. It doesn't affect us." "Doesn't affect us?" Maya almost shouted, then lowered her voice for fear of making a scene. "James, that past is part of you, part of your family. And you chose to hide it from me even as we stood at the altar vowing honesty. I need space. I need to think." Without waiting for his response, Maya turned and hastened out of the ballroom, leaving James alone amid the music and lights. He felt his heart shatter. He knew he'd been wrong, but his fear of losing Maya had become a reality. Meanwhile, Maya, her heart in pieces, fled to the hotel lobby, her tears unrelenting. She pulled out her phone and dialed Lena. Her voice choked. "Lena, I need you. James, he hid something terrible from me." As the moonlight bathed Boston, the wedding celebration continued, but a secret now tore apart two hearts that had just pledged forever from the past. What should have been the beginning of their happiness It turned into a brutal test. Could Maya and James's love survive the wound that had been uncovered? The atmosphere in the lobby of the Fairmont Copley Plaza felt cold, despite the warm yellow lighting washing over its elegant walls. Maya Thompson sat in an armchair tucked into a quiet corner, her hands clutched tightly around her phone, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. The distant echo of wedding music from the ballroom only alienated her from what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. The revelation about Henry Carter James's grandfather had pierced the core of her trust in the man she loved. "How could he keep something like this from me?" she whispered, her voice cracking as she dialed the number of her closest friend, Lena Harris. Lena picked up immediately, her voice laced with concern. "Maya, what's going on? Where are you?" "I'm in the hotel lobby," Maya said, struggling to steady her voice. "James. He hid something from me about his grandfather, Henry Carter. He was against racial integration. Lena, James knew what my family went through because of racism, and he still said nothing. I don't know what to do." Lena let out a soft sigh, her voice calm but firm. "Maya, I know you're hurting, but give yourself time. Don't make any decisions while your emotions are spiraling. I'm coming right now. Okay? Just stay where you are." Even though Lena couldn't see her, Maya nodded and hung up. She leaned back against the chair, eyes closed, trying to silence the whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind. She remembered the stories her grandmother Ruth had told of being turned away from restaurants in the 1960s because of her skin color, of her father David witnessing violent protests as a young boy. Her family had fought hard to rise above those injustices, paving the way for Maya to stand where she is today, a successful attorney. And now she had just discovered that the man she'd vowed to build a future with carried a legacy that starkly contrasted with everything she held dear. Did I choose the wrong person, she wondered, and the thought made her heart ache. Meanwhile, back in the ballroom, James Carter stood silently in a corner, watching guests continue laughing and dancing. The upbeat music now felt like a cruel irony. He felt like he'd lost the most precious thing, Maya's trust. He wanted to chase after her, to explain, to beg, but his legs, one real, one prosthetic, felt as if they'd been bolted to the floor. The secret about his grandfather, which he'd tried to bury for years, had just unraveled on their wedding day. James stared at his phone, his finger hovering over Michael Evans's name, his best friend. Finally, he pressed the call button. Michael answered almost instantly. "Hey, groom, where are you? Everyone's looking for you." "Michael, I ruined everything," James said, his voice cracking. "Maya found out about my grandfather, Henry Carter. She just learned the truth, and she thinks I betrayed her." There was a pause on the line. Then Michael asked gently, "Did you ever tell her, I mean the whole truth?" James shook his head, even though Michael couldn't see. "No, never. I was scared, Michael. Scared she'd look at me the way I looked at myself when I first learned the truth." In the ballroom's waiting room, James sat down, his hands cradling his head. He remembered the summer he was 16, when he'd stumbled upon an old box of documents in his grandparents' basement. Inside were articles about Henry Carter, a man who had led protests against integration laws in Alabama, who had written speeches full of prejudice, advocating for the so-called purity of white communities. At the time, James felt ashamed and wished he could disappear. The same grandfather who had once hugged him and told stories of adventure became a symbol of hatred. That truth had changed him. He severed ties with his grandfather's legacy, went on to study law, and became a civil rights attorney working at a rehabilitation center to help disabled people, especially people of color, reintegrate into society. Every case he took, every initiative he championed, was a quiet attempt to atone for his family's past. But he had never found the courage to tell Maya. "I thought that if I didn't say it out loud, It wouldn't exist, he whispered to himself, voice heavy with regret. Michael's voice came through the phone again. James, listen. You were wrong to keep it from her, but Maya's love for you is real. She's hurt right now, but if you're honest, if you show her who you are, she'll understand. Don't let fear take her away from you again. Michael's words were like a crack of light breaking through the darkness. James took a deep breath and stood. You're right. I have to face this. I can't let Maya believe I'm not worthy of her trust. Back in the hotel lobby, Lena arrived and immediately embraced Maya. You don't have to face this alone, she said gently, rubbing Maya's back. But I know you love James, and I've seen how he looks at you like you're his whole world. Maybe he was wrong, but he's also fighting something inside himself. Maya wiped her tears and looked at Lena. I love him, Lena, but how can I trust someone who hid something so big from me? What if there are other secrets? Lena took her hand. You won't know unless you talk to him. Don't let this pain tear you apart. Give him a chance to explain. Maya nodded slowly, a flicker of hope forming within her. She gazed out the window where the moon shone quietly over Boston. Somewhere in this hotel, James was battling his regrets. Though pain had driven them apart, the love they had sworn to protect just hours earlier still connected them. But was that love strong enough to heal the wound now exposed? As Lena stood to fetch some water, Maya's phone buzzed with a message from James. Maya, I'm sorry. I'm in the waiting room. If you're ready, I'd like to talk. I love you. Maya stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She knew that the conversation ahead would determine their future. And though her heart still hurt, she knew that running away wasn't the answer. She rose to her feet with a deep breath, ready to face James and the truth. The dim wall sconces of the Fairmont Copley Plaza's waiting room cast a shadowy glow over James Carter's face. He sat rigid in a leather armchair, fingers tightly clasped, his blue eyes fixed anxiously on the carpeted floor. The faint echo of wedding music filtered through the walls, but it sounded like a cruel reminder of the joy that had just shattered James. The truth about his grandfather, Henry Carter, had exploded like a bomb, wrecking Maya Thompson's trust, the woman he loved more than anything. The message he had sent minutes ago. Maya, I'm sorry. I'm in the waiting room. If you're ready, I'd like to talk. I love you, remained unanswered. And every passing second, it carved deeper into his heart, like a blade. In the hotel lobby, Maya stood frozen, her phone trembling as her eyes flicked between the message on the screen and Lena Harris's concerned face. Lena's words echoed inside her. You need to talk to him, Maya. Don't let pain tear you apart. But the hurt still gripped her like a vice. Her family, from Grandma Ruth to her father David, had endured too much under the weight of racism. For James to hide the truth about Henry Carter, who once led anti-integration protests, wasn't just dishonesty, it felt like betrayal. Still, when she looked at the message again, her heart wavered. She still loved him, and that made it all the more painful and all the more real. I need to face him, Maya finally said, her voice steady, though her hands were still shaking. If I don't, I'll be stuck in this doubt forever. Lena nodded and squeezed her hand. You're stronger than you know, Maya. Go. I'm here if you need me. Maya drew a deep breath and walked toward the waiting room. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she knew running wasn't the answer. When she pushed the door open, her eyes locked with James's. He shot to his feet, pale and glassy-eyed, as though he hadn't blinked in hours. The air between them thickened, weighted with years of history. Neither had lived, but both had now inherited. Maya, James, whispered, voice cracking. Thank you for coming. She said nothing and sat in the chair across from him, keeping her distance. "Speak," she said quietly, her voice cold but trembling. "I want the truth. All of it." James swallowed hard, then sat. His hands trembled. "Henry Carter is my grandfather," he began. Back in the 1960s, he was a known figure in Alabama, but not for anything good. He led protests against racial integration, published hateful essays, and promoted segregation under the banner of tradition. He was part of the ugliest side of American history. He paused, pain flickering in his eyes. But later in life, he changed. Quietly. I think he donated anonymously to civil rights organizations and tried to atone. I don't know the full details. My family barely speaks of him. They were ashamed. And so was I. Maya listened, her chest tightening. "Then why?" she asked, her voice sharp as glass. "Did you never tell me? You knew who I was, James. You knew what my family endured. My grandmother was beaten for demanding the right to vote. My father grew up surrounded by red lines and exclusion. How could you possibly think this secret was okay?" James bowed his head. A tear slipped down his cheek. "I was wrong," he said. "I was scared. Maya, when I met you, I saw strength and brilliance and compassion. You didn't see me as someone broken or incomplete. You saw me. I was terrified that if you knew about my grandfather, you'd see me through his shadow. And I couldn't bear to lose you." His confession left Maya stunned. She saw the truth in his eyes, but the ache in her chest remained. "Don't you get it?" she whispered. "This isn't just about your grandfather. It's about trust." We stood at that altar, James promising to be honest with each other. "And yet you chose to keep this from me. How can I know there aren't more secrets?" James stood, stepping toward her, then froze when she pulled back. "There aren't," he said, voice hoarse. "There are no other secrets. I hid this because I didn't trust our love enough. That's on me. I let fear make choices for me. And I regret it more than I've ever regretted anything." Maya's tears spilled, now silent and steady. "I love you, James. But love isn't enough without trust. I need time. I need to understand if I can believe in you again." James nodded, his tears falling freely. "I understand," he whispered. "I'll wait, Maya. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild what I broke. But please, don't give up on us." Silence settled between them, save for the soft thud of two hearts aching in unison. Maya rose from her seat, meeting James's gaze one last time. "I'm not giving up," she said, voice gentle but resolute. "But we have to face this. Not just you and me, but with both our families. I want to know why your parents never told you the full truth. I want to hear it from them." James nodded slowly, a glimmer of hope behind the pain. "Okay," he said. "We'll do it together. I'll take you to see them. And I'll demand the answers I should have asked for long ago." Maya didn't take his hand, but she nodded. "We start with my family," she said. "My parents need to know this. Then we go to yours." The lights above glow warmer as they exit the waiting room and into the corridor. Somewhere in the distance, the wedding reception still played on. But Maya and James knew their wedding day had become more difficult and more defining. They were no longer simply newlyweds exchanging vows of love. They were two people confronting history, themselves and each other, to save what was still worth fighting for. From across the lobby, Lena spotted Maya walking beside James. Her lips curved into a faint smile. She knew the path ahead would not be easy, but Maya had chosen to confront rather than flee. Not far away, Michael waited quietly, ready to stand by James. And under the moonlit Boston sky, Maya and James walked forward, not hand in hand, but with a quiet vow between them. They would fight for their love, no matter what it costs. The morning after their wedding, Soft sunlight bathed the quiet streets of Roxbury, casting a golden hue over the proud Victorian house belonging to the Thompson family. Maya Thompson sat beside James Carter in the parked car, her fingers gripping the seatbelt tightly, her heart heavy. Their late-night conversation in the hotel waiting room had opened a door just a crack to hope. But the wound left by the revelation of James's grandfather, Henry Carter, a known segregationist leader from the 1960s, still throbbed beneath the surface. They had agreed to confront both families to find the whole truth. And this morning, the journey began here at her parents' home, Dr. David and Mrs. Naomi Thompson. Maya glanced at James. His face was tense, his blue eyes filled with quiet dread. "I know this won't be easy," she said softly. "My father, he's lived through a lot. This won't be something he accepts." James gently took her hand for the first time since the night before. "I know, Maya. I'm not here to excuse what I did, but I'm here. I'll be honest with them with you. Because of us." She nodded, feeling the resolve in his voice. Drawing a deep breath, Maya stepped out of the car, James following close behind. As they stood before the door, her hand hesitated at the bell. It trembled. James stood beside her, steady, quiet, offering silent strength. The door opened. Naomi appeared, her expression a mix of surprise and concern. "Maya, James. What are you two doing here? Shouldn't you be on your honeymoon?" Maya offered a faint smile. "Mom, we need to talk. With both of you." Naomi led them inside to the living room, where David was seated reading the paper. He looked up, his eyes sharp as they shifted from Maya to James. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low but commanding. Maya sat down James beside her. The room seemed to tighten around them. She inhaled deeply and began. "Dad, Mom, last night I learned something about James's family. His grandfather, Henry Carter, was a segregationist leader during the 60s. James didn't tell me before the wedding. I was deeply hurt." A heavy silence fell over the room. David stood up sharply, his face clouded with anger. "You knew this and still married my daughter," he said, his voice tight. "Do you have any idea what our family has been through? My mother was beaten for demanding her right to vote. I grew up in red-lined neighborhoods called names. I never want my daughter to hear, and you kept this from us." James lowered his head, his voice trembling but firm. "Sir, I was wrong to hide the truth. I'm ashamed of what my grandfather stood for. He led protests in Alabama and wrote speeches that divided white and black communities. I found out when I was young and spent my life doing everything I could to stand against that legacy. I became a civil rights lawyer, working for disabled people of color, trying to make things right. But I was afraid. I was afraid that if Maya knew, she'd see me differently. I'm sorry." David glared at him, his jaw clenched. Naomi placed a hand gently on her husband's shoulder. "David, let's hear them out. James is not his grandfather. He's here telling us the truth." Maya's voice broke through, trembling but determined. "Dad, I love James. I was hurt that he didn't tell me, but I see he's trying. I want us to face this together as a family." David turned away, stepping toward the window. Silence lingered. His mind drifted back to the battles he and Naomi had fought for Maya's education and dignity. He thought of Ruth, his mother beaming with pride when Maya graduated from Harvard. Could he let James's family history threaten his daughter's future? Finally, he turned his voice quieter. "Maya, you are my world. If you see something good in James, I will try to see it too. But you," he said, turning to James, "you need to prove yourself worthy of her." James nodded, eyes misty. "I will, sir. I promise." Naomi embraced Maya, tears slipping down her cheeks. You two are walking into a storm, but your love is strong, and we are here for you." A weight lifted from Maya's shoulders. She looked at James, and hope flickered in her chest for the first time in days. But she knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. "We'll visit your parents next," she said to James. "I want to know why they kept the truth about Henry Carter hidden." James squeezed her hand. "I'll arrange it. We'll face this together." As they left the Thompson home, the sunlight in Roxbury felt a little warmer. David and Naomi stood at the doorway watching their daughter and son-in-law disappear down the walk. David leaned toward his wife and murmured, "He seems sincere, but I'm going to be watching him." Naomi smiled. "They'll make it, David. Love like theirs. It's worth fighting for." In the car, Maya and James sat in silence, but their hands remained clasped. The meeting had been hard, but it had strengthened their bond. Still, they both knew the confrontation waiting in Wellesley at the Carter home would be even harder. And under the shifting clouds of a Boston sky, they prepared themselves. Not just for love, but for truth, and for the trust they'd have to rebuild from the ashes of the past. Dusk settled over Wellesley, painting the sky in soft amber hues. Sunlight filtered through thick maple trees, casting long shadows across the Carter family's stately old mansion. In the car parked outside the gate, Maya Thompson sat beside James Carter, her heartbeat quickening as she stared at the wrought iron gates that led into the sprawling estate. After the emotional meeting in Roxbury, where her parents David and Naomi had begun to open their hearts to James, this next step felt heavier. This time, they were facing the Carter family. The truth about Henry Carter, James's grandfather, who once led anti-integration protests in the 1960s, still lingered like an open wound. Maya needed to know why this truth had been buried and whether James's family truly accepted her. James reached for her hand. It was ice cold. His blue eyes betrayed his tension. "I know you're worried," he said, voice low. "My parents, they don't open up easily. But I'm here. We'll face this together." Maya nodded, squeezing his hand gently. "I need the truth, James. Not just from you, from all of you. If we're going to move forward, I don't want any more secrets." They stepped out of the car and approached the grand entrance. Maya felt the weight of the house pressing in, like it held stories no one dared to tell. When James knocked Eleanor Carter, his mother opened the door. Her face was pale eyes, flickering with surprise and unease. "James, Maya, we didn't expect you this soon. We need to talk." "Mom," James said, voice steady, "about grandfather, and about everything this family has kept hidden." Eleanor led them to the living room where Robert Carter James's father sat with a glass of scotch. He stood, his sharp gaze darting from his son to Maya. "What's this all about?" he asked, his voice clipped and wary. The room turned cold as they all sat. James drew a deep breath and began. "Maya knows about grandfather Henry. She knows he was against integration. But what I need to understand is, why did we never talk about him? Why did you hesitate when I told you I wanted to marry Maya? I need the truth." Eleanor covered her face, a choked sob escaping her. Robert set down his glass, his expression hardening. "James, you don't understand," he said, voice thick with weight. "My father is a stain on this family's history. We tried to protect you so you wouldn't carry that shame." Maya, silent until now, couldn't hold back. She straightened her gaze fierce. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter," she said, steady and clear. "I understand you wanted to shield James, but hiding the truth doesn't erase the past. It only deepens wounds, wounds like those my family carries from surviving generations of racial injustice. I love James, But I need to know how you truly see me and this marriage." Her words hit the room like lightning. Eleanor burst into tears and then did something no one expected. She knelt before Maya, taking her hands. "Maya, please forgive me," she wept. "When James told me about you, I was terrified not of you, but of our past. I feared you'd despise us and leave him if you found out. But here you are, strong, kind, honest. I was wrong to doubt you." Stunned, Maya helped her to her feet, her voice calm but resolute. "Mrs. Carter, I'm not here to judge, but I do need honesty. Please, tell me everything about Henry Carter." Robert exhaled deeply, his tone heavy and reflective. "My father, Henry, was a man of deep prejudice. He believed integration would destroy the order of society. He led protests in Alabama and wrote op-eds supporting segregation. But in his final years, he changed. He met a black pastor who forgave him, and it shook him. He started donating anonymously to civil rights groups, but he never made amends publicly. We stayed silent, out of shame, and because we didn't want his sins to define you." James stared at the floor pane etched across his face. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" he whispered. "I had to find out on my own. And I've carried that shame alone ever since." Eleanor grasped her son's hand, tears falling. "We thought we were protecting you, but we failed you, and now we've hurt Maya too." Maya looked between them. She could feel the sincerity in their words, but still sensed distance. "I appreciate your honesty," she said gently, "but accepting the past isn't just about telling the story. It's about proving you've changed truly, supporting us, not just with words, but with action." Robert nodded, a newfound seriousness in his eyes. "You're right, Maya. We will show it, not just say it." James took Maya's hand. This time she didn't pull away. "Thank you, Mom, Dad. But from now on, we want full honesty. No more secrets, no more hiding." By the time they left the mansion, night had fallen. The street lamps of Wellesley cast soft golden light across their faces. They walked to the car, fingers still intertwined. "I feel lighter," Maya admitted, "but not completely. Your parents were honest, but trust takes time." James nodded, kissing her forehead gently. "I know, and I'm here for every step of rebuilding it." As they drove back toward Boston, Maya stared out the window, reflecting on what had just unfolded. Meeting the Carter family didn't erase the pain, but it was a beginning. She could feel something shifting in James' guilt and resolve, a more profound commitment to do right by her and the truth. Under the shimmering stars of a Boston night, they both knew the road ahead would still be hard, but with honesty and love, they were no longer afraid to walk it. The deep blue sky stretched wide over Martha's Vineyard as the ferry carrying Maya Thompson and James Carter docked at Oak Bluffs. After days of emotional storms, from the revelation about Henry Carter to the tense confrontations with both families, they had chosen to begin their honeymoon. But not merely to rest. This was a journey of healing, of rediscovery. The island, rich with the history of the African American community, was no random choice. Maya longed for a place to reflect. James saw it as a chance to learn, grow, and rebuild together. Maya stood at the bow of the ferry, the sea breeze tossing her hair, her eyes glowing as she took in the vibrant wooden homes lining the harbor of Oak Bluffs. James came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. His voice was warm and low. "How does it feel, Mrs. Carter?" Maya smiled. For the first time since the wedding, she felt a quiet ease. "It's beautiful, James, and I have this feeling that this place will give us something special." She turned to face him, Though trust was still being rebuilt the way James had stood by her during the most challenging conversations with his family, and hers had rekindled a belief that they could make it. They rented a small cottage by the sea, where the sound of waves lapping against the shore played like a lullaby. On their first day, they walked the African American Heritage Trail, a journey through historic sites, honoring Black resilience and contribution. At one plaque, Maya stopped. It honored Dorothy West, a famed writer of the Harlem Renaissance. Maya read aloud. She found her spiritual home in Oak Bluffs, where the Black community thrived despite prejudice. James listened, contemplative. I didn't know much about this place before, he admitted, but I read up on it before we came. I want to learn, Maya, not just about your history, but about how we can build our future on the lessons it holds. His words touched her. She reached for his hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. Thank you. You being here wanting to learn, it means more than you know. Later that afternoon, they sat on Menemsha Beach, where the sand shimmered beneath the golden sun. Maya rested her head on James's shoulder, the rhythm of the waves echoing the slow, steady beating of their hearts. Then came a question that had haunted her since the truth about Henry Carter came out. James, she said softly, hesitant, have you thought about children? About how we'd tell them? About your grandfather? James was quiet, eyes fixed on the horizon. I've thought about it more than you know, he said. His voice was low, sincere. I want our kids to know the truth, the good and the bad about my grandfather, about the wrongs he committed, and about how I chose a different path. I want them to understand that fighting prejudice isn't optional. It's our responsibility, no matter where it comes from. Maya looked up, her eyes shimmering. There was a time when I worried that some of his prejudice might still live in you. But seeing you here facing it, choosing to learn, it makes me proud of you, James. He pulled her closer, holding her tight. I love you, Maya, and I promise I will keep working to be the best man I can be. For you, for our children. I won't let the past define us. At that moment, beneath a blazing sunset, Maya felt their love deepen. The wound from James's hidden past hadn't vanished, but it was beginning to heal through his actions, not just his words. Their honeymoon continued with a visit to a local community event at Union Chapel, where longtime residents shared stories of civil rights struggles. One older woman with warm eyes and a slow, wise smile looked at Maya and James as she said, "You two being here, you are living proof that love can break any barrier." Her words made Maya grip James's hand tighter. She realized then, this trip wasn't just about them. It was the start of something larger. James, she said that evening, as they walked back to their cottage, I think we can do more. Not just for us, but for others. We could use our story to inspire. James smiled, brushing a kiss on her forehead. I agree. Together, we can create change. That night, moonlight spilled through the cottage window, and they lay beside each other and talked about the future. They knew that new challenges would await once they returned to Boston work society and the continued rebuilding of trust. But here on Martha's Vineyard, they had found something greater. Not just the rescue of a love almost lost, but the birth of a shared mission. To use that love to build something better. And as the sound of the ocean lulled them to sleep, it carried with it a quiet promise. No matter how winding the road ahead, they would walk it side by side. Golden autumn sunlight spilled across the bustling streets of Boston, but inside a law office tucked in the heart of the financial district, Maya Thompson felt a heavy weight settling on her shoulders. After a meaningful honeymoon in Martha's Vineyard, she and James Carter returned to daily life with a renewed purpose to rebuild trust and use their love as a force for change. But reality came at them fast. On Maya's desk, lay an email from a fellow African-American colleague, Samuel Green. He was pleading for her help on a racial discrimination case involving a major tech corporation, one of the firm's biggest clients. Maya read the message carefully, her heartbeat quickening. Samuel had been repeatedly passed over for promotion, and internal documents pointed to blatant favoritism toward white employees. Taking on the case could jeopardize Maya's newly earned junior partner status. It could turn the firm's leadership against her, but declining it would mean turning her back on everything she and James had vowed in Martha's Vineyard. She pressed her fingers to her temples, feeling like she stood at a crossroads that could define her future. Just a few blocks away, he faced his trial at the rehabilitation center, where James worked as a lawyer and an advisor. He stood before the board of directors presenting a new reintegration initiative to support disabled people of color's transition into society. This program directly addresses barriers that communities of color face, James said passionately. We could become a national model. Richard Grayson, an older board member with a stiff demeanor, frowned. James, we appreciate your passion, he said flatly, but this program is expensive, and frankly, it doesn't align with our core mission. James clenched his fists under the table, holding back frustration. Our mission is to help the disabled reintegrate. How can we claim that mission if we ignore the most underserved among them? This isn't just work, it's justice. The room fell into silence, but Grayson's skeptical gaze made it clear this battle was far from won. That evening, Maya and James sat across from each other in their small kitchen, 2 steaming cups of tea between them. The soft glow of the overhead light cast shadows on their tired faces. Maya spoke first, her voice low. James, if I take this case, I could lose everything I've worked for at the firm. But if I walk away, I'll feel like I've betrayed myself. James listened quietly, eyes filled with understanding. I get it, Maya. I fought with the board today. They don't see the value in what I'm proposing. Some days I wonder if I'm trying to change something that doesn't want to change. Maya reached across the table, placing her hand over his. We made a promise in Martha's Vineyard, James, to use our story to make a difference. If I turn this case down and you give up on your program, then the past wins. Not just your grandfather's past, but all the injustice still alive today. Her words struck a chord. James squeezed her hand gently, a faint smile on his lips. You're right. We can't stop now. But Maya in this case is dangerous. That company has power connections. You need to be careful. Maya nodded, her eyes burning with quiet resolve. I know. And so do you. Your board won't change easily either. But you changed your family's minds, James. You can change theirs too. Suddenly, Maya's phone buzzed. A message from Lena Harris. Maya, turn on Channel 5. Now. Maya and James rushed to the living room and flipped on the TV. Samuel Green's face filled the screen in a breaking news segment. The reporter spoke gravely. Internal documents suggest a pattern of systemic favoritism. A young attorney is reportedly considering taking on the case. Maya's face paled. She turned to James, her voice barely above a whisper. It's out now. There's no turning back. James wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. Then we move forward, together. Your case, my program. We fight Maya. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone still waiting for change. The kitchen light flickered above them as they held each other, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. They knew this decision would thrust them into a storm of legal pressure, social backlash, and echoes of a past that still haunted me. But in that small kitchen, with the warmth of their hands clasped tightly, they found strength. Boston's skyline still shimmered with city lights, but in their hearts, a different kind of flame had been lit, the fire of justice, of love, and an unshakable commitment to never back down. The air inside Maya Thompson and James Carter's Boston apartment was as heavy as the gray sky outside their window. Since last night's report on Channel 5, the racial discrimination scandal at the tech corporation where Samuel Green, Maya's client, worked, has become a media wildfire. The weight of the case now bore down on Maya, while James faced escalating opposition from the board regarding his inclusion program at the rehab center. Yet neither of them could turn back. Not after everything they had faced, from Henry Carter's buried secrets to the reckoning with their families. The love and commitment they made in Martha's Vineyard was now the only light guiding them forward. That morning, Maya sat before her laptop, frozen. An anonymous email had just arrived. Attached was a trove of internal documents from the corporation records of closed-door meetings where executives discussed how to eliminate employees like Samuel for not fitting the company culture. It was a chilling euphemism for racial bias. Maya's hands trembled. The documents could blow the case wide open, but fear crept in. This came from a faceless source. She called out, her voice tense. "James, you need to see this." James entered, setting his coffee down and scanning the files, his face drained of color. "This is a bombshell, Maya. If you use this, everything changes." But he hesitated, concern written across his features. "Who sent this? And how much do they know about you?" Maya nodded slowly. "I know. It's dangerous. But if I ignore it, we let them get away with it. Samuel and people like him won't stand a chance." James reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I stand with you. But we have to be careful. This company has money, power. They won't play fair." Only hours later, James's fear became real. While Maya sat at her law office, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, and a cold, deep male voice slipped through the line. "Ms. Thompson, I suggest you drop this case. It would be unfortunate if your career or your husband's safety were compromised." Before Maya could respond, the line went dead. She froze. Her heart thundered. For the first time, genuine fear found its way in. She called James immediately, her voice shaking. "James, I just got a threat. They know about you." James was in the middle of a board meeting. He stood up without a word and walked out. "Maya, are you okay? Stay where you are. I'm coming." Behind the wheel, his grip tightened on the steering wheel. He thought of what they had promised in Martha's Vineyard, to use their story to bring change. But now, it wasn't just their careers at stake. It was Maya's safety. He found her in a conference room, eyes wide with fear, yet burning with resolve. He pulled her into his arms and whispered, "I'm scared of losing you, Maya. But I know. We can't let them win. If you want to move forward, I'm with you. All the way." Maya leaned against him, feeling his warmth dissolve some of the cold inside her. "Thank you, James. I can't do this alone, but we need help. I'm thinking. Clara Nguyen. She's an investigative journalist. If we bring her in, we can take this public, put real pressure on the company." James nodded, the fire returning to his eyes. "Good idea. And I'll start rallying support for my program. If we both fight at the same time, they can't silence us both." They contacted Clara Nguyen, a fearless reporter known for exposing corporate corruption. In a discreet cafe in downtown Boston, Clara listened intently as they laid everything out. Samuel's case, the anonymous files, and the chilling phone call. When Maya finished, Clara leaned back, her eyes glowing with conviction. "This isn't just one case," she said. "It's a system. If we go public, this could shake the tech industry. But you both need to be ready. They'll come after you. Hard." Maya and James exchanged a glance, their fingers intertwined beneath the table. We're ready, Maya said, her voice firm. We've already faced our family's pasts. Now we'll face this. Clara nodded, taking rapid notes. I'll start digging, but you'll need a support network. Legal allies, activists, anyone willing to stand up. That evening back at home, Maya and James sat at the dinner table under the dim glow of a single lamp. They began to build a list. Colleagues from Maya's firm, friends from James's center, Lena, Michael, anyone who had stood by them before. We're walking into something bigger than we imagined. James murmured, eyes steady. But when I look at you, I know we can do this. Maya smiled, the first true lightness on her face all day. Together, James, just like we promised. She leaned forward, kissing him softly, a flicker of warmth in the eye of the storm. Outside, Boston shimmered in city lights. But inside, Maya and James knew the path ahead would be perilous. Samuel's case, James's program, their love, all now intertwined in a battle far greater than any one lawsuit. They weren't just fighting a corporation. They were standing up to an entire system of injustice. And as long as they had each other, they were ready to face whatever came next. Early morning at the Boston Federal Courthouse felt like a festival of reckoning. Crowds gathered at the gates, holding signs demanding justice. Reporters jostled for position, cameras flashing as they captured what could become a historic moment. Maya Thompson climbed the courthouse steps, clutching her briefcase, her eyes lit with unwavering resolve. Beside her, James Carter walked with quiet intensity, pride and tension etched into his face. The racial discrimination case of Samuel Green versus the tech conglomerate had exploded into a national spotlight thanks to the anonymous documents Maya had received and Clara Nguyen's soon-to-be-published exposé. After weeks of threats, pressure, and fear, today was the day they would fight for justice. Not just for Samuel, but for everyone who had ever been silenced. Maya turned to James, squeezing his hand. "We've come so far," she said, her voice low but firm. "Today they'll face consequences." James kissed her forehead, his blue eyes shining. "You've got this, Maya. I'll be out here making sure the world hears what's happening inside." He stepped back into the crowd, where activists and his colleagues from the rehab center had gathered. Over the past weeks, James has organized peaceful protests and given interviews openly speaking about his journey to dismantle the prejudice his grandfather Henry Carter handed down. Inside the courtroom, the air was tight with tension. Judge Thomas Reeves, known for his fairness, presided at the bench. Across the aisle sat the corporation's elite legal team, led by Lawrence Hartley, a towering man with eyes like sharpened steel. Samuel Green sat just behind Maya, his expression taut, but his gaze full of hope. Maya stood, inhaled deeply, and began her opening statement. "Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is not just about Samuel Green. It is about every person who's ever been silenced, sidelined, or shut out because of the color of their skin. Today we seek not just a verdict, but a future where fairness is the standard, not the exception." Her voice rang out clear, powerful, filled with emotion. She laid out every piece of evidence: internal emails, biased evaluations, sworn testimonies. A former executive unexpectedly stepped forward as a witness, confessing that the company had systematically eliminated people of color from leadership roles. Each testimony struck like a hammer against Hartley's ironclad defense. Maya could feel the weight of every gaze from the jury, from Samuel, from those waiting outside. The room pulsed with one fragile but fierce hope. That change was possible. Outside, James stood on a makeshift platform, his voice reaching through microphones and camera lenses. "I am a white man. I grew up with the legacy of my grandfather's prejudice. But silence is complicity. My wife Maya is in that courtroom fighting for justice. We must stand up, not just today, but every day, until justice becomes the norm. His heartfelt and raw words rippled across social media, fueling a wave of national conversation. On the fourth day of the trial, Clara Nguyen released her investigation in a significant publication. The article exposed a pattern of discrimination within the corporation, unequal pay, targeted layoffs, and exclusionary leadership. The company's stock plunged. Public pressure surged. Sensing defeat, Hartley approached Maya during recess. "Ms. Thompson," he said in a hushed, urgent tone, "we're prepared to settle. Money, recognition, whatever you want." Maya stared him down, unmoved. "Mr. Hartley, we're not here for money. We're here for justice." She turned away and stepped back into the courtroom, the fire in her steps brighter than ever. After 5 grueling days, the jury returned. Judge Reeves read the verdict, his voice calm but firm. In the case of Green v. XYZ Corporation, the jury finds the defendant guilty of systemic racial discrimination and retaliatory practices. The courtroom erupted. Cheers, gasps, tears. Maya turned to Samuel. He wept as she embraced him. James burst through the back doors and wrapped them in a fierce hug. "We did it," he whispered, voice shaking. As they stepped outside, the crowd roared. Signs waved. Cameras flashed. Voices sang out. Samuel took Maya's hand and said, "You gave me a chance, and gave others one too. Thank you." Maya looked toward James, who stood beside her, heart full. "We did it together," she said. That night, back in their apartment, they sat on the sofa. Boston shimmered beyond the windows. They held each other. The silence between them filled with meaning. "Today was one step," Maya whispered. "There's still more to do." James kissed her gently. "Together, we'll keep going. I love you, Maya." And under the city lights, they knew. This victory didn't just belong to them. It belonged to everyone who had ever believed in justice. The courtroom battle had shifted the game, but the movement was only beginning. Autumn sunlight streamed gently through the tall windows of a law office in Boston's financial district, casting a soft glow on Maya Thompson's new desk. The victory in Samuel Green's landmark case had shaken not just a corporation, but an entire industry and Maya's life. The law firm, once hesitant about the case, had now appointed her as the head of a newly established civil rights division. A symbolic step forward etched not only in stone, but in policy. She stared at the engraved nameplate on her desk. Pride warmed her chest, but so did a quiet understanding of the responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. The trial hadn't just delivered justice for Samuel. It had sparked a national reckoning that demanded equality in corporate America. Not far away, James Carter stood before the board of directors at the Rehabilitation Center. He presented a detailed report on his integration program designed for disabled people of color. In the aftermath of Maya's courtroom triumph, public pressure had forced the board to greenlight his proposal. It had become a national model, reshaping how marginalized individuals access support and dignity. "We're not just changing their lives," James said passionately. "We're changing how society defines justice." Richard Grayson, once his staunchest opponent, nodded in approval, a transformation James never saw coming. The case's impact spread like ripples across a still lake. Major companies began auditing their hiring and retention practices. Diversity and inclusion programs were no longer footnotes. They became front-page policy. Maya and James became sought-after speakers, traveling across the country to share their stories. From the buried shame of Henry Carter's past, James's grandfather, to the healing work it took to turn inherited prejudice into active justice. At a conference in Chicago, Maya stood before hundreds. "Justice doesn't come easy," she told them. "It demands courage. It requires the truth. and it demands people brave enough to rise. In the front row, James watched her pride glistening in his eyes. But amid the triumphs, a quiet moment at home brought the deepest reconciliation. One evening, as Maya and James relaxed on the couch, the doorbell rang. Eleanor Carter, James's mother, stood at the threshold holding an old leather-bound journal. "Maya, James," she said, her voice trembling, "there's something I need to share." They invited her in. The three sat at the dining table as Eleanor opened the journal. "I found this in the attic," she explained. "It's my father's, Henry Carter's. He wrote these words near the end of his life, about the shame he carried, about a conversation with a black minister that changed him. He wanted redemption, but didn't know how to ask for it." She slid the journal across the table toward Maya. "I want you to read it. I want you to know that our family has changed because of you. And James." Maya turned the pages, reading Henry's shaky handwriting. There laid bare was his remorse, his recognition of the pain he had caused, his longing for a better world than the one he had helped shape. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. "Thank you, Eleanor," she whispered. "This means more than I can say. It shows me that change is possible, even in the hearts once lost." Eleanor reached for her hand, voice thick with emotion. "You helped us face the truth, Maya. You are part of this family and I am proud of you." James pulled them both into his arms. A quiet peace settled over the room. "We've come so far," he said softly, "and we'll keep going together." After Eleanor left, Maya and James curled up on the couch. The journal rested between them, a bridge between the past and the future. Maya leaned against his shoulder and whispered, "At first, I thought the hardest battle was your family's past. But now, I realized it was about building a future for us and everyone watching." James kissed the top of her head and smiled. "I love you, Maya. With you, I feel like we can do anything." That night, the lights of Boston shimmered beyond their window, as if the city itself were celebrating what they had achieved. Samuel's case had led to sweeping reforms, hefty fines for the corporation, a forced leadership restructure, and the creation of a fund for victims of workplace discrimination. James's program expanded across 5 states, with other organizations modeling their frameworks after his. But above all, Maya and James knew. Their story of love, truth, and justice was now inspiring thousands to rise and claim their voice. They held each other close, the crisp air of autumn whispering through the city. The ghost of Henry Carter, once a weight, was now a testament to transformation. And with renewed purpose, Maya and James were ready. Not just for the next challenge, but to be the light guiding a movement forward. The sun dipped below the horizon at Menemsha Beach, Martha's Vineyard, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange. Maya Thompson and James Carter sat on the sand, the waves lapping gently like a lullaby. A year had passed since their landmark victory in Samuel Green's case. They had returned to the island where their honeymoon had ignited a shared purpose. Martha's Vineyard wasn't just a retreat. It was where they reclaimed love after the painful secret of Henry Carter James's grandfather was revealed. It was where they vowed to turn their story into a force for change. With a new future forming beneath their fingertips, they reflected on the road behind and the one still ahead. Maya, her belly slightly rounded, took James's hand and placed it gently on her stomach. She smiled, eyes glistening. "Our child," she whispered. "I want them to grow up in a better world, James. One we're helping build." James held her close, feeling the faintest movement beneath his palm. "They'll grow up knowing their parents fought for justice," he said, voice low and warm. "And we'll teach them how to carry that torch." The past year had been a testament to the power of love and truth. Samuel's case had triggered sweeping reforms. The tech giant was forced into restructuring, and new laws in Massachusetts now require companies to report their diversity metrics publicly. At the firm, Maya's Civil Rights Division had taken on dozens of similar cases, giving voice to those once silenced. James's integration program had grown to 10 states, with international organizations adopting his model. Their story of buried family truths and public justice was now the subject of books, documentaries, and keynote speeches inspiring millions. But victory had not come without cost. They had faced backlash threats and the bone-deep exhaustion of carrying a mission that sometimes felt heavier than love itself. One night, when Maya worked late, James cooked dinner and placed a flower beside her plate. "We're not just fighting for the world," he told her, drawing her into his arms. "We're fighting to hold on to each other." That moment reminded Maya that their love was the foundation, everything else was built on top of it. Now on the beach, they remembered the trials, their stormy wedding day, the revelation of Henry Carter's past, the courtroom reckoning that followed, the nights of silence, the days of hope. "Did you ever think we'd come this far?" Maya asked, resting her head on James's shoulder. James shook his head, smiling. "Honestly, no. But with you beside me, we can do anything." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a necklace, a delicate pendant shaped like a flame. "To remind us," he said, "of the fire we lit, the one we'll keep burning." Maya fastened the necklace around her neck, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I love you, James, and I'm proud of us." That evening they attended a community event at Union Chapel. Young activists stood on stage sharing their new visions for justice. One young woman, eyes bright with conviction, pointed toward Maya and James in the crowd. "You showed me," she said, voice shaking, "that love and justice can walk hand in hand." Applause erupted. Maya reached for James's hand, her grip firm. In that moment, she felt the weight and the beauty of the legacy they were building. Later, back at their beachside cottage, they stood on the balcony watching moonlight shimmer across the waves. "We've started something bigger than us," Maya murmured. "And I know, with our child, this journey will continue." James kissed her, his eyes alight with certainty. "Our legacy isn't just court cases or programs. It's our love, Maya. A love that broke through every wall." Under the moonlight, they held each other, their warmth a shield against the chill in the air. Martha's Vineyard, where it all began, had become a symbol of hope and perseverance. They knew the world still held injustice, but now, with a child on the way, they had a new reason to keep going. The story of Maya and James, from inherited wounds to the flame of justice, had become a beacon for those who dared to dream of a fairer future. And as the ocean whispered wave after wave, Maya and James stood hand in hand, ready for whatever came next. Their love, tempered by fire forged in truth, was now a light not just for themselves, but for the generations that would follow.